We'll get rolling. I'm a little pressed for time today since we have a real practice today because we're a week in advance. So we can get right to your question and get going that way. Don't get anybody cut off.
What can you tell us about Trey Rucker's status with the team at this point?
You know the same thing I do. I'm going to let the system run its course. All I know is what they've told me and the information that I have.
Do you expect him to be active this weekend then?
He's active until the system takes its place, and then we can make a decision. Essentially, I can't get ahead of the process based on the type of incident that took place. I've got to let the system run its course and then make a decision from that point.
How was the bye week?
Good. We had good practices. Hopefully the guys got rested up a little bit. Back at it last night, and then obviously a full practice today. This is the best team that we've played overall, so that we'll really need to step up and compete in all three phases. But the players are excited about practicing, and their attitude's been great, so that's been encouraging as a coach.
Mike, just for clarification for everyone, your plans to stay with Bowman this week, right? Is your plan to have Bowman start on Friday?
We're working through that this week in practice.
Was there anything you emphasized specifically in practice, wanted to focus on during the bye week?
Not really. Base in all three phases. Blocking, tackling, fundamentals, technique. Worked a little bit on conditioning last week. Not anything specific out of the ordinary.
I think after Iowa State, in postgame, I think you said you guys were going to practice 4 times last week. Is that what you did? And is that typical? I can't remember what exactly you're...
Yeah, we did about the same as we always do. The only difference is sometimes we would go in a morning at the end, but we didn't. But it was a typical off week.
Does that help because you do have the short week now with the Friday game, being able to kind of package them together?
Oh, I mean, it's the same for them, right? They had an open date, so it's not any different, in my opinion. I'm guessing they adjusted their schedule based on it just like we did. So with both teams having the same scheduling situation, I don't see it being any big deal.
Your offense was better at Iowa State, I think that's fair to say. Still needed to repair some things. How much repair work can you do as a staff in 13 days?
Repair meaning what?
Just across the board, offensively. Any position.
Well, we continue to try and get better at what we did. We blocked better. We blocked better up front. We were run blocking. We were covering guys up better. We protected better. And for that reason, we saw better results.
Are you convinced that that's going to continue with the line based on the one-game sample size, or?
I think they should get better each week. If we can keep 5 guys in there consistently working together, that'll help. But they improved some last week, and I would see that they should improve each week and continue to get better.
Another odd man front with what K-State brings. Mm-hmm. How much different is theirs versus yours that your offense sees on such a regular basis?
There's a lot of similarities. They flirt with a little more of the 3-3 than the 3-2, but comparison-wise, it's pretty close.
And they incorporate a little 4-man with theirs.
Mm-hmm. They do some 4-man like we do. There's a lot of similarities in what we're doing. Coverage-wise, they're doing a couple things differently, but the concepts are all pretty much the same.
They lost maybe their best linebacker in Green, and he's done for the year with a knee injury. Who are some of the guys you look at? Because I know there's a lot of changeover from what you saw a year ago. Who are some of the guys over there you see, like maybe Duke, the defensive end, or anybody in the secondary you say, oh, that guy's a heck of a
Well, their safeties are good players, and they tackle really well. Linebacker play, 32, runs around, makes a lot of plays. I see him making plays. Front-wise, a different group, but, relentless. They play hard. So they look very similar to what they did. They were a little more experienced in the box last year, but their back end is very experienced with those safeties.
Do y'all as a coaching staff use last year's game as a motivator or as a things that went wrong last year to kind of motivate, or is it mentioned at all in these 2 weeks against Kansas State?
No. I don't think that factors in much. We have to practice well and get ready for this game, and I've never really used past experiences as motivation.
Dalton Cooper has now, I guess, like a game and a half at left tackle, which is obviously what he had played at Texas State. What have you seen from him there in terms of helping that group?
Well, he seems to be a little more comfortable. As I mentioned, if we can keep 5 guys in there healthy practicing, that helps communication. But he played pretty good at that spot in the last game, and it's one of the reasons that we were able to play well offensively.
Mike, you've always been a guy that felt like the best teams were player-driven, had key players in the locker room that kind of pushed the agenda, maybe even more than the coaches. Who have you discovered in your locker room or out on the practice field, guys you can point at that we can rely on him? He's doing.
Well, we've got a number of guys. Each year the team is different. Somebody's got to drive them and got to pull them along. Coaches can do so much, but to a certain extent, players have to do it themselves. And Nick Martin, I mentioned, doing a good job. Colin's coming around. He's not a real vocal guy, but his attitude and his presence has been really good. They've done a nice job on that side of the ball. Mikulski's doing a good job offensively of keeping guys going. We're getting we always get good things from Presley. Again, he's not real vocal, but we get good leadership from him, I should say. But as a group, they're practicing really hard and buying in and competing like they did last week, which is a good sign.
I know Bowman hasn't been given the keys necessarily to the vehicle yet, but one thing about him, and even through the quarterback rotation, he was extremely positive, and then I think he was that way too when he met with the media after the game.
Well, yeah, he's been good. Yeah, he's been that way from day one. Very mature, older, been around, seen a lot of different things in his career, and he's been good for us.
You mentioned Presley is one of those guys you can always get a lot out of Oakley leadership. He hasn't been as involved this season so far. Is it still a good sign that you're getting that kind of leadership from BB?
Yeah, he's doing a good job. We need to get him the ball more. He needs to be involved more. I'd mentioned this to you. When you play outside of the box, it's more difficult to say we're going to get this player so many touches compared to a running back. It's a little different. But I have mentioned to them that he needs more touches, but he always has a good attitude.
Whether it's Brennan or Stribling or Blaine Green, anyone, you got to unlock your downfield passing game. What kind of work could you do toward that aim? What kind of work did you do the last 2 weeks?
I'm not sure what's the question?
You're at 121st in the country in yards per completion, which is atypical for your offense. What do you need to do to get that a little where it needs to be?
Well, last game was the first game that I thought protection-wise we were in a position to be effective. And so if we'll continue to protect and give our guys a chance to throw the ball down the field a little bit, that'll help.
You don't need more out of the receivers or the quarterbacks in that regard. You're saying it really's got to come to the
Well, now that you mention it, we've had some drops on some good throws. I would say that there's been 3 or 4 drops that were downfield throws that would have helped those numbers. The consistency of protection and being able to feel our way through the passing game will help.
Do you have any idea if Lyric's going to be available this weekend?
He's a day-to-day guy. He practices, and we just have to see how he feels.
What do you think of Cam Epps in his place?
He's playing good. He's young, but competing, tackled, should get better each game. Got athleticism and seems to be adjusting well, and is getting to play a lot.
From a size standpoint, he may stand out the most, but you've got some bigger guys, size-wise, in the secondary that can kind of help out like Cam.
Yeah, he's a big body. Obviously, with Kendall there's a big body, and Lyric was, if he's in there. When guys go down like Lyric, somebody's got to step up and play. And based on the personnel that we're playing each week, it could vary whether it's a safety or maybe it's a third corner that's in for a nickel. Just different things that we have to do based on who we're playing.
Coach, Kansas State's top 20 in offense and total and scoring. What challenges do they give your defense?
They do a good job with running the ball. They've always have. They have linemen in their program that they've developed and gotten stronger over the years. Their majority of them are somewhat kind of local, homegrown kids that take pride in that, and they rush the ball really well. They're physical. The improvement that they've made over the last couple of years is their quarterback, who's played how many years now? How many years has he been there? I mean, seriously, 6? Early member years ago, they were struggling with him, but he's played so many games now that he's gotten better. I see that as where their improvements come from, is however many games he's played and been around, he's just more experienced.
What were some other of your defensive takeaways from watching the Iowa State game? Against Iowa State?
Well, the same thing I said after the game. We dropped coverage twice and cost us 2 touchdowns. We tackled better, but when you drop coverage and turn guys loose, those things are hard to make up for, and that's really what happened.
Are those drop coverage, is that communication issues, or is that
multiple things that are fixable?
Going back to Cam Epps for a second, because Robert brought up his size, and obviously talent level is probably too early in his career to make this comparison, but is he a little bit cut out of the Trey Flowers kind of mold? I know they both started as corners. So that's
their body type's a little bit. Trey's a little rangier than him, but played early in their career, similarities.
On that Iowa State game, how did Bowman grade out when you went back to review the tape?
He played pretty good. He had some decisions that we wish would have been different, but overall, in the total number of plays, he played pretty good.
Mike, defensively, you guys have kind of sprung a leak through 4 games. It was missed tackles early, some broken coverages now. Is that common, or is that just the growing pains when you bring somebody like Brian in, or is that kind of uncommon?
Well, there's going to be some adjustments with a new system, but the thing I said to them, I'll say to you, is that over the period of the games that we've played so far, once we start tackling better, if we don't drop coverages a few times, the games are going to look much different. So the good news is that we should be able to correct those things and cover guys up. Don't give them big plays by dropping coverage. Need to be a little better on third down, and then continue to tackle, and then we should improve each week.
With an extra week, Mike, do you spend more time with the coordinator specifically, or is it your face time with them change at all?
Well, I just naturally spend more time with them in meetings, like all last week, and we have this week before the next game. So, just extra days.
So if you see, I figured the correlation might be you don't see the players as much. Maybe you use that time to spend with the staff more. That's not necessarily the case.
Well, I see the staff more because I only see the players for practice and meetings, but I see the staff all day. I'm not sure what you're asking me.
I didn't know if you'd use again the extra time to go into the bunker, so to speak, with either Brian, Casey, or anyone on the staff and say, let's figure this out, let's touch this up.
Well, I make them aware of things I have concerns of, and then ask them for what their answers are, and then listen to them and see if we have a plan in place to try to make it better.
Mike, with Ollie Gordon, he's shown real flashes of being able to make guys miss, good vision, that sort of thing. Is that something that you saw when you recruited him, or is that something that guys, they have to kind of work on when they get here?
So he was a big guy that played quarterback a lot, played running back, was physical, was intelligent, showed some skill. We felt good about him as a running back when we took him. And I think that he's really made improvement this year, which is pretty fair. I mean, he played last year. He was a freshman. And he's continuing to make some strides and helping a little bit with the leadership. I failed to mention him. He's doing a good job with that, which is important because he's a big, strong presence and is trying to play the game hard and be physical. And that's kind of what we saw out of him in high school.
doesn't get brought up a lot, but we saw some long field goal attempts. I think UCF tried to kick a field goal to save that game that they dropped the lead in on Saturday. But what Alex has shown you so far, does that give you a sense of security if you have to win a game late with even a longer field goal? That what he did at Ames off that turf, that's a hard surface for a kicker to.
Yeah, Alex is played well. It doesn't surprise me. He played well years ago and had a couple years off, and now he's coming back and plays well. He works diligently to perfect his craft, takes a lot of pride in it, and has been a very successful athlete in a lot of different areas. And I think that is something that helps him with the kicker standpoint, with being in there, because when you're out there, it's all on you. But we have a lot of confidence in his ability to perform.
Did you have a specific number in mind? I mean, you seen him out there, I think it was a 53-yarder into the wind.
Yeah.
Did you have a number in mind that if we're inside of this, he can get it there type of thing?
Oh, I think I don't see any issues with him from 57 in. Maybe further, I'm not sure. But he's fine from around that area.
You don't know where it'll go, but Logan Ward could maybe even kick one longer. I don't know if
He can go.
between
He can make 160.
With the steps forward the offense took in Ames, do you think some of that had to do with one guy being a quarterback?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we'd never know that answer. I think the consistency of our offensive line covering guys up in the running game, and we protected pretty well until in the end when it was an all-pass situation, might have been a bigger add than one guy playing.
Does the fact that Bowman had that experience at Texas Tech, not just what he's seen, but also that offense, particularly with Kingsbury, was getting the ball out quick, and in a year when your offensive line is maybe has some protection issues, is that valuable?
Well, it's two different concepts. Getting the ball out is based on the concept of the offensive plays. I do think that quarterbacks that have a feel for getting the ball out based on the concept quicker is an advantage. And I think that there's things he's done in his past that I see him do in practice that ties in a little bit to what he did at Tech that does help him.
Mike, K-State's rush defense is number 6 in the country. How much more important does that make it to establish the run on Friday?
Well, I mean, not any more or less. I mean, it's important that we do that in the games from here on out to try to stay as balanced as possible. As I said, this will be the best team we played so far overall in all three phases. And so as we continue to try to balance ourselves offensively and allow ourselves to rush the ball well enough to throw the ball, it's important to make a difference who we play from here on out.
What have you seen from them on tape? I know you kind of mentioned the 3-3, 3-2 things with them earlier. What have you seen from them on tape that allows them to have such a good run defense?
Well, they've been successful. They play hard. They don't get out of their gaps much. I don't see that they make a lot of mistakes. And defensively, if you can be in the right spot, tackle okay, and not have mental errors, force teams to have 8, 10, 11-play drives, in most cases the offense is going to mess it up. And they do a good job of that. They're in the right spot. It's much different. When we played them here a few years ago, I don't know how many, I think it was the first year they were there. They had just gone to the 3 down. I think, I can't remember anymore, but the year they played here, and they had some areas where they weren't in the right spot at times. And they've gotten much better at that over the last couple of years in this defense.
K-State's a good team again this year, and we know what happened last year against K-State. What makes you think that this year is going to be different?
Well, hopefully our practices, our concepts that we have based on what they're doing will give us a chance to go out and play better, compete, and I think the attitude of the team, I think they'll play hard. I think they're looking forward to playing in the game.
I heard your brother on the radio coming here. Have you caught him at all?
Have I caught him?
Yeah, caught him on the radio.
I don't listen to the radio. I mean, I listen to 70s, The Bridge, and The Blend.
What's the blend?
It's like your kind of music and mine, like 70s, easy going, if I could capture time in a bottle, that kind of stuff.
Jim Croce.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you make an exception for Kale.
I've never listened to the radio. I would think about jumping off my back deck before I would listen to talk radio.
He's not going to change.
Two idiots yelling at each other, discussing what people think, is not my time. I have no time for that.
During the bye week last week, y'all, on social media, there was a lot of, coaches are going out recruiting, going to different games. Who was in charge of deciding which coach is going where? Multiple guys go to this game or this area, going to Dallas, going to out west, going to somewhere in Oklahoma. Who's kind of in charge of that and handles where coaches are going for different games?
Well, that's Todd Bradford, who's our director of recruiting, in his office. They help with the coaches. Now, the coaches are going to have input based on where they want to go, but the director of recruiting handles and we manage that to make sure we follow the rules, don't cross over, all the different contacts you can and can't have comes out of his office.
How is that on an off week different than when y'all have a game on a Saturday as far as the logistics? If you have a home Saturday game, you can surely Friday night you can go out to different games. How
That's
does
right.
that differ versus when there is no game, like on a bye week?
So when we finish on Thursday, our coaches left and scattered all over the place to go recruiting Friday in schools or wherever, and then at games, and then some on Saturday if it's maybe a junior college or a game that they can pick up on a Saturday. Not many high school games. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they do.
Versus not like a regular, a few weeks ago in South Alabama, it's here. Our coach is still going out on Friday.
Yes.
More.
Yes. Yeah, we can go anywhere we want to go. We don't go a long ways away, but you can if you want to jump in a plane and go watch somebody play up in, Nebraska and fly home. We can do that. You only get so many visits at a particular school during a certain time of the year, and then the head coach can only do it once. So there's just a lot of rules, but that's what we do.
You guys have struggled the past 2 weeks, but Friday's game is still sold out. What does that kind of say about the fan base, that the ups and downs?
Well, we talked about this earlier. We sold out. Our suites are sold for 2 years. Our club seats are sold. Our stadium sold out. So there's been a commitment from our fans and the Oklahoma State people to show that this is a football school. Football is important to us, and they've done a good job, and they've played that role. Whether conference realignment had something to do with it or not, I'm not sure. But they've done a good job of saying, hey, we're going to come to the games and be there and support the team, which is what they should do. I mean, that's what this is all about. So I've been very pleased with it and thought that the fans have been awesome and would expect nothing else from them and the students on Friday night.
What did you make of several of your players promoting Pokes with a Purpose a day or two after the game?
What's that?
The players promoting Pokes with a Purpose after the game on social media?
What are you asking me?
What did you make of that? Just
I didn't even know that happened. I'm not aware of it. I mean, I have no idea that they. I'm not even sure what you're talking about. I'm okay to answer the question. I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
The NIL collective.
No, I know the NIL, but you're saying our players.
They were tweeting out hey, support.
I'm not on Twitter now, or X or whatever. I don't even know how to get on there. So any of that stuff, I don't have any idea what goes on. None.
How important is it in your mind for fans to be aware of the collective and potentially donating to it?
Yeah, the NIL and the collective is very, very important. And I think that Pokes with a Purpose and our administration has done a good job of trying to get information out there. It is very important. It is becoming a part of college football, and I think it's here to stay. So it is very important, and it's something that is, I guess, going to grow from here on out. What direction it'll go, nobody knows. But it is very important. It's a part of what we do. And Pokes with a Purpose has done a great job. And how they work with our administration in the future is important, and I think they're trying to work through all that right now, as is every other school in the country.
Is NIL something you're pitching with recruits? Is like, we have this great collective here at Oklahoma State, Pokes with a Purpose, and that's different than other schools might be. And is that something you're talking about with potential recruits and commits?
We don't here because it's illegal. I don't break the rules. So now I don't know if other people do or not. That's a good question. All right?
Thanks, guys.